We're really worried about him and urge the authorities in Brazil to do all they can to search the route he was following.
It was supposed to be one of Dom Phillips's last trips to the Amazon, the kicker for a book that would reveal all the lush complexity of the world's largest rainforest. Instead, it seems to have been a final chapter for both Phillips and his friend Bruno Pereira, an expert on indigenous people and guides. Dominic Mark Phillips was born on the 23rd of July 1964 in Babington, Cheshire. He had a sister and a brother. He studied at college in Liverpool, but left without a degree to travel around the world, living in Israel, Greece, Denmark, and Australia. Phillips, 57, who is working on a book about the environment with support from the Alicia Patterson Foundation, is based in the Brazilian city of Salvador and has been reporting on Brazil for more than 15 years for newspapers including The Guardian, The Washington Post, The New York Times, and The Financial Times. He has previously written about deforestation and other environmental issues affecting Brazil, while Pereira is a father of 3 and an expert of indigenous affairs in Brazil. He previously worked for FUNAI, the Brazilian government's indigenous rights agency, and has been described as a hero by his former colleagues. Phillips met indigenous expert Bruno Pereira for the first time in 2018 when they traveled to the Javari Valley where armed poachers were plundering the rivers. The region is known for violent conflicts between these various criminal groups, government agents, and indigenous people. It was these conflicts that Phillips and Pereira were documenting. Dom Phillips disappeared on a trip to one of the remotest corners of the Amazon days after receiving threats. The reporter was traveling with Bruno Araujo Pereira, a former government official tasked with protecting Brazil's uncontacted tribes, who have long received threats from the loggers and miners seeking to invade their lands. The area in which they were traveling has become known for illegal fishing, mining, logging, and drug trafficking activities. On June 1, 2022, the journalist left his home in Salvador, where he lived with his wife. He sent relatives in the UK a picture of the Amazon with a rainbow over it, which he had taken from the plane, the day after he met with Pereira and left for the area around Adelaide do Norte. On the 6th of June, local indigenous leaders sounded the alarm after the 2 men vanished during a reporting mission into the network of rivers around the town of Adelaide do Norte, the entry point into the Javari Reserve. They said Phillips and Pereira had set off last week by boat for a region known as the Lago do Jabiru, reaching their destination on Friday evening. At about 6 a.m. on Sunday, after 2 days in the field, the pair are thought to have started returning by the river to Adelaide do Norte. The journey should have taken no more than 3 hours, but a search party was sent out at about 2 p.m. after they failed to arrive. A prominent indigenous leader asked the government for a quick response to find both of the missing men. Federal police officials in the capital of Amazonas, Manaus, said they were aware of the disappearances and were working on the case. The Navy said it had sent a 10-person crew to the men's last known location, but Army waited for official orders. Independent search parties were also being organized by indigenous and environmental activists. Apart from the UK government, relatives of Phillips in the UK also urged Brazil to act. Paul Sherwood, the partner of the journalist's sister, tweeted asking for quick actions from Brazilian government. On June 7th, Dom Phillips' sister makes an emotional plea to help find the journalist missing on Amazon. Alessandra Sampaio, the wife of Dom Phillips, releases a statement in which she asks Brazilian authorities to act quickly. Brazilian authorities, our families are in despair. Please answer the urgency of the moment with urgent actions. I want you to know that Dom Phillips, my husband, loves Brazil, and he loves the Amazon. He could have chosen to live anywhere in the world, but he chose here, she said. Phillips and Pereira had traveled to the region around a FUNAI monitoring base and reached Jabiru Lake Friday evening. The pair started the return trip early Sunday, stopping in the community of São Rafael, where Pereira had scheduled a meeting with a local leader to discuss indigenous patrols to fight the intense invasions that have been taking place on their lands. When the community leader did not arrive, the men decided to continue to Adelaide do Norte, about a 2-hour trip. They were last sighted shortly after near the community of São Gabriel, just downstream from São Rafael. The pair were traveling in a new boat with 70 liters of gasoline, sufficient for the trip, and were using satellite communications equipment. On Monday night, police arrested 2 fishermen in the area. It remained unclear why they were arrested, and they have since been released. The next day, the wife of Phillips released a video and asked Brazilian authorities to intensify the search. Brazilian police have opened a criminal investigation following news that Bruno Pereira had been threatened. Pereira had clashed with some in riverside communities over illegal fishing. The president of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, has appeared to blame the men. Quite frankly, 2 people in just 1 boat, in that kind of region, absolutely wild, is an adventure that isn't recommendable for anyone. Anything might happen. It could have been an accident. They could have been executed, he said. In response, Pereira's wife said she was hurt and offended by the president's words. These are statements that contradict the extreme dedication, seriousness, and commitment that Bruno has with his work. June 8th, police arrested a man, Amarildo da Costa de Oliveira. The suspect was caught in possession of drugs, a shotgun, and ammunition restricted for military use. Da Costa goes by the nickname Pelado and was reported to have threatened Phillips and Pereira and a group of 13 indigenous people on Saturday morning while they were stopped at the side of the Itaquai River in Amazonas state. The pressure on the Brazilian government kept building as the editors around the world wrote a letter to the president of Brazil to find the missing men. Family members, journalists, and civil society organizations held a vigil at the Brazilian embassy in London to urge Brazilian authorities to scale up the search for the missing British journalist and the Brazilian indigenous expert. On June 10th, police found on the river near Adelaide do Norte apparently human organic material. Police also confirmed blood had been found on a boat belonging to Amarildo da Costa de Oliveira, the man police arrested earlier. Police said the material was being sent for examination and took DNA from Phillips' home in Salvador and from the family of Pereira in Recife. The genetic material collected will be used in comparative analysis with the blood found on the boat, they said. On Friday afternoon, a judge ordered that a suspect arrested on Tuesday should be held for another 30 days while police investigate whether he is involved. The same day, indigenous community raised concerns about the search activities. As they stated, operations are inefficient as they are not properly conducted by authorities. On June 11th, personal items belonging to the British journalist Dom Phillips and Brazilian indigenous expert Bruno Pereira have been found in an area of flooded forest near the Amazonian River on which they were last seen. By June 12th, Phillips' mother-in-law said she had lost all hope of finding them alive. "They are no longer with us," she wrote on Instagram. "Mother Nature has snatched them away with a grateful embrace." It's the 13th of June, though the hopes are little, but search operation is still on. Later that day, British relatives of Phillips said they had been contacted by the Brazilian embassy in London on Monday morning and informed that 2 unidentified bodies had been found during the search operation. He didn't describe the location and just said it was in the rainforest, and he said they were tied to a tree and they hadn't been identified yet, said Phillips's brother-in-law, Paul Sherwood. However, the federal police later denied the claims that 2 bodies had been found. Indigenous activists involved in the search effort also said they had no information about such a discovery, but do believe the men's remains will soon be found in an area of flooded forest where their search teams found some of the men's belongings on Saturday. The next day, Brazilian ambassador to the UK apologized to the family of Dom Phillips for incorrectly telling them his body had been found in the Amazon along with that of his missing traveling partner Bruno Pereira. On the 14th of June, police in Brazil arrested Osni da Costa de Oliveira, 41, in connection with the alleged murder of Phillips and Pereira. The suspect admitted he had seen Pereira's boat on the day of the disappearance, but said he had only gone out the following day when Pelado claimed he went hunting pigs in his own boat. On June 15th, Boris Johnson said the UK government is deeply concerned about the circumstances surrounding the disappearance of the British journalist Dom Phillips. "We have told the Brazilians that we stand ready to provide all the support that they may need." The same day, police in the Brazilian Amazon have found the bodies of 2 men in the area close to where British journalist Dom Phillips and indigenous activist Bruno Pereira went missing 10 days ago. Regional Police Chief Eduardo Fontes said one of the 2 men arrested in connection with the pair's disappearance had confessed to killing them. Fontes told reporters, "We are now going to identify the human remains with the most dignity possible. When the remains are proved to be those of Dom Phillips and Bruno Pereira, They will be delivered to the families. The news was greeted with relief by Phillips' wife, although we are still awaiting definitive confirmations. This tragic outcome puts an end to the anguish of not knowing Dom and Bruno's whereabouts. She wrote in a statement, "Now we can bring them home and say goodbye with love. Today, we also begin our quest for justice." Forensic tests carried out on human remains found in the Brazilian Amazon have confirmed that they belong to Dom Phillips, who went missing with Bruno Pereira. The investigations indicate that the killers acted alone, without any author or criminal organization behind them, Brazil's federal police in the Amazon region said in a statement. While the Univaja, the indigenous group, cited the cruelty of crime, shows that it is not just two executioners, but an organized group that planned every detail of this crime. Brazil's federal police said Saturday that a third suspect in the deaths of Dom Phillips and Bruno Pereira has been arrested. "I think he underplayed the risks to some extent, but we knew that there were risks," Dom Phillips' sister said in an interview. This was the final trip for his book. This was the trip with Bruno to give the story of the indigenous people living in the Javari Valley, she said. The 19th of June, Brazil police identify 5 more people linked to killing. Investigators described the investigation as 90% complete, saying that the expected arrests were likely to be the last in the process. They said the 5 men they expected to arrest were relatives of the 2 brothers in custody. In Adelaide do Norte, Marubo, an indigenous close friend of Pereira, said, "I feel an indescribable pain because I have lost a brother. I have lost part of my story." Marubo sent a message to the families of the 2 men. "You are not alone," he said. "We will march on together." Philip's brother-in-law Paul Sherwood raised a question. Were they acting alone, as the police have said recently? Or was there a larger involvement of other powerful people, organized crime? The families of Dom Phillips and Bruno Pereira are seeking justice. Share your thoughts about this video in comment section.